7-6 here. Jalen Hurts, Matt Harmon. Why do you have the defending Super Bowl champion quarterback in your top 10? The
I
audacity
know
to include him in your top 10.
Jackass. Unbelievable take by me. The guy, I will say, like, yeah, maybe the ring really does do a lot for the discourse here, both making it more positive and more toxic on certain ends of the internet here. But I just, again, even though this is how we're grouping it, when I ranked these guys out, I actually included Hurts with that tier that we just discussed. So again,
that's fair.
If you stylistically prefer Dak or you stylistically prefer, I'm not nervous about Stafford, but I'm a little bit. I'm not nervous about certain parts of last season. I do think if he's protected and he has good weapons, he should be fine. But if Jalen Hurts is protected and he has good weapons, he is also fine. Like, results wise, it's been very good for him. I also think, yeah, there are clear, and we've talked about this a lot over the course of the last year, even as they're winning the damn Super Bowl. We've talked about the deficiencies of Jalen Hurts and maybe where he's not as willing or able to work over the middle of the field as some of these best quarterbacks and like drive that deep in breaking route. But the stuff that he's good at, he is really, really good at. I mean, and he has the receivers to cash those checks when he writes them. You know, he has AJ Brown to throw go balls. He has Devontae Smith to throw go balls, but the placement on those throws is really good. And he can access like what I would call true heartbreaking dagger, inducing throws to an opposing defense when he's able to attack deep and outside the numbers. So also just what he brings as a rusher, some of it's tush push stuff, but I do think just that helps the offense a ton too. Just keeps things on schedule. There was even some big plays in the playoffs where, of course, he's working on in tandem with a great talent at running back, but he's able to, when those plays are available, he's able to take those as well. So I just think yes, they've catered the offense to be what Jalen Hurts needs it to be over multiple coordinators, and we're getting another coordinator here this year. We'll see how that goes. But the results of that offense are very, very good. So it's hard for me to push him too far outside of the top 10.
Charles, before I get my rebuttal, why did you have Hurts not in your top 10, I should say?
I was looking at this as kind of like if I were to start an offense and I had nothing else, like which quarterbacks would I go with? I just don't think he'd be that close to the top 10, just based on how I was approaching it. Because I just feel like he needs so much to get going, and even within this ecosystem, they've had stretches of games like where they can't throw the ball, which to me is just it's absurd. Like, you have one of the best offensive line we've seen, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, a really good ecosystem for that, and they still go through stretches where the production is not there, which is kind of like, for me, that's all I need to know. Because I feel like if I were to give like CJ Stroud this infrastructure, they'll probably win the Super Bowl too. If I were to give a lot of quarterbacks this infrastructure, they would win the Super Bowl or get close. And that's not really I'm not trying to take too much away from Jalen Hurts. I just think as a passer, he's pretty limited. And when I put him up against some of the other rushing quarterbacks, it's not always as clean for him, especially like when he's running horizontally outside the pocket. So I still view him as a pretty limited quarterback, but it's more like I think our friend Stephen Ruiz puts it in a good way: good football player, average quarterback, and that's how I feel about Jalen Hurts, because obviously he's someone that you don't mind having as your quarterback, but in a vacuum, if everything was equal, I don't think he's raising the floor for your offense as much as the other players are.
I think that's Charles put it there is kind of what I agree with too. I always view this as like, all right, starting from blank, which isn't fair because we're like ranking them for 2025, how they could do here, but we're also doing like, oh, how would I pick them for this year? So that's the thing, is I respect what his game is. I would say if I'm dropping on a neutral team or switching quarterbacks and all that, he's lower on that ranking. That is also how he played in the Super Bowl, though. That, of course, is what it's going to be in everyone's memory. The games leading up to that were really rough. They were. Like Charles is saying, it was like throwing the ball was an adventure, and he was really breaking pocket all the time. You could tell he wasn't trusting because they had a couple of line injuries too, or at least banged up guys. The Rams game and the playoffs, you couldn't drop back. Some of that, again, was the offensive line. But again, top quarterback plays, how do you mitigate that offensive line when you do have the blemishes and things? And so that always is burned in my brain about how he plays the bails to the left and throwaways, bails to the left and throwaways. But I also thought, having said all that, in the Super Bowl, it's the classic line that I always like to say: if you make a mistake, make it fast, or if you make a decision, make it fast. And there he was, 1, 2, 3, balls out. Okay, I'm going to scramble in the second half. I think he had a scramble, goes in between the tackles, as opposed to bailing to the right or bailing to the left. He planted his foot, got north. And I'm not trying to be funny here, like a good running back. But that's what I want to see more of Jalen Hurts. And if he showed that for 9, 12, 14 weeks last year, but instead I'm kind of just feeling the same about him, which I've always been a lower player, a guy on him, or evaluator on him. But I still, I think Charles just put it best, or Steven, I should say, really good football player. And he does some things. He's so tough. And I really respect that. Just some quarterback things. He doesn't handle protections. The passing stuff is still kind of he's really good at certain throws, and certain throws you would never ask him to do. That always just kind of leaves leaves me lower on him than maybe some of these other guys that I prop up here. Like Trevor Lawrence, who threw 12 touchdowns last year. So that's maybe why I just kind of kept him off.
Only throw 12 last year.
He was hurt.
He was hurt.
11.
Oh, okay.
Hey, but his TD 7 picks. Yeah, perfect. That's exactly how many sacks he took. Oh, nice, almost 6% sack rate too. That's great. That's exactly what I want in my top 10.